AEW needs help, desperately. I mean, what would you do to help them fix their declining ratings? Well, I've worked on hit shows and quite a few failures, and I have a few ideas on why their ratings have declined, how to help them get out of their rating spiral, and what the future may hold for the number 2 franchise in professional wrestling. My last idea is going to be a controversial one. Okay, let me put my money where my mouth is. Idea number 1 for fixing their declining ratings: focus on the stories. Ratings are about 2 things: hooking new viewers and keeping existing viewers. Focusing on dynamic storytelling does both. Think about it like this. AEW has amazing wrestling. The moment-to-moment in-ring storytelling is breathtaking. Now, describe it in a way that attracts someone who doesn't watch wrestling. It's hard to do, and I know. I make videos about wrestling for a living. Now think about your favorite storyline on wrestling, and think about explaining that. To use AEW, how about the Brochacho storyline from last year? 2 guys forced together, can't stand each other. One's a bad guy, one's a good guy. The good guy realizes that the bad guy might not be such a bad guy, right? And then slowly over time, the good guy learns about all of the trauma and suffering the bad guy had, and their friendship begins to strengthen, and then, okay, you get the point. Stories are attractive because they have emotional hooks built in. That's why you compulsively watch whatever TV dramas you binge on a Friday night. So why are AEW's ratings declining? Well, I think there's a few reasons. One of my followers posted this message over on Instagram. Now, I think he's almost right. The problem isn't that AEW has too many hours, it's that wrestling in general has too many hours. When AEW premiered creatively, WWE was at a low point, and AEW was considered not just a breath of fresh air, but a shot in the arm for the entire industry. Fans were desperate for a new take on wrestling. But a few years in, WWE has come back with a vengeance and has become must-see television. That makes a literal time crunch to keep up with all of the product that comes out. Okay, so then we need to look at who makes up AEW's audience. Hardcore AEW fans, and, I am one. The problem is that they need to get a piece of 2 other demographics. The larger general wrestling fan demo, which WWE has fully captured, and curious non-fans, which is going to be an uphill battle for another reason, and maybe my second suggestion could help. Brand awareness. WWE is synonymous with wrestling. AEW has to overcome that. AEW has done a great job investing in spreading the love of wrestling around the world by bringing in international brands and stars. They're all in event in London and the viral videos of their stars, but that's where they need to kick things up. My second idea? Their social media and online presence needs a serious upgrade. When WWE has an episode of Raw or SmackDown air, they are constantly tweeting, Instagramming, YouTubing the entire time, adding backstage segments, clips, enhancements, and more. Now, AEW does do this too, but at a much decreased volume and with one primary difference. WWE puts story in their added content so that you watch it for fear of missing out on something. Adding more essential content online helps to make it go viral, which in turn will help it turn up in more feeds and spread their stars, their stories, and ultimately their brand out into the world. But that's not all. There was something I wasn't aware of until I started this channel, actually. AEW and their partners are notorious in the online world for issuing copious takedown notices against streamers, vloggers, and other online content makers. I know this firsthand because I had a TikTok account for this page, which got taken down because of a notice from AEW. It was just a tiny page which had reaction videos and commentary videos getting maybe 50 to 60,000 views. Imagine that times all of the other vloggers and TikTokers that are getting takedowns. When your TV shows are losing 50 to 60,000 viewers a week, those few hundreds of thousands of extra eyeballs seeing your content and being made curious are a huge bonus. It's free marketing, and going after them is cutting off your nose to spite your show. Now, this third idea, it's going to be controversial. Put less stuff in your shows. The shows are densely packed. A few weeks back, I made a video discussing AEW's use of story. I'll put a link to it in the corner. And I marveled at just how much story AEW does pack into their episodes. But in cutting that video, I started to realize it might just be too much. There's a need for all storytellers to self-edit. Just because you have the ability to do whatever you want doesn't mean you should do whatever you want. The episodes of Dynamite are so chock full of matches and stories and segments that there's literally no time to breathe, or more importantly, for the audience to comprehend what they just watched. So much so that on a recent episode of Dynamite, there was a 15-minute overrun, which sounds like a great idea to goose the ratings, unless you're watching it on a streaming platform that didn't record it like many people complained about that night. Those 15 minutes should have been part of the show, and with some diligent trimming to the earlier part of the episode, it could have been. This is all especially true considering the other two shows, Rampage and Collision, have a tendency to be mostly matches and much less essential viewing, which is because their viewership is so much lower. I'd argue if you follow some of the steps I've outlined here for all of the shows, especially putting more story content onto Rampage and Collision, making them essential rather than just enhancery, you would get a much bigger audience over time. Look, the other truth about ratings, and something that has been proven time and time again, is that they're about training your audience. When a show has a reliable time slot and makes a promise of content, the viewers are likely to not just show up because they know where to go, but to show up regularly. AEW is often a victim of shifting time slot because of TNT and TBS's sports commitments, and there's nothing they can do about that. But what they can control is their content and how reliably what they provide delivers on their promise. All right, so what does this mean for AEW? Well, their contract is up with Warner Brothers Discovery this summer, and they're supposedly deep in negotiations. The good news about their ratings is that they still manage to be the highest rated show on cable on their night most weeks, so I don't think that they're likely going anywhere. But losing viewers nonstop is not sustainable, no matter how deep the pockets are. Eventually that audience will bottom out, and then something terrible could happen. We could lose AEW. See, the industry needs AEW. Without competition, wrestling will stagnate. We saw that post-WCW. It's bad for the wrestlers themselves because they lose their negotiating power. It's bad for creative because without competition, there's nobody to truly challenge the work that you're doing. And it's bad for fans because there's less wrestling in the world. And who wants that? Hey guys, right after I filmed this video, there was an episode of AEW Dynamite. And to my surprise, a lot of the things that I suggested doing in this video were actually taken to heart, and a few things that I didn't suggest were done that I wanted to just talk about really quickly. Number one, it was a very story-centric episode. Really story-driven. I really think they did a fantastic job. Highly recommend you guys check it out. Number two, and this is something that maybe sounds like a small thing, but it was filled with clip packages. There was clip packages for every single segment almost, explaining what had gone on before, what you needed to know, and how to keep up with it. This is a way for you to actually follow along with the story and know what's happening. They did a great job of bringing in new audience members. If you haven't seen the show before, this is a great way to do it. I was really impressed with what they did. I feel like it was a great step forward. Here's hoping that what they did makes a difference and brings things forward. I'm going to post a link up in the corner there to my review that I did of the entire episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you've enjoyed this video, please make sure you share it with your friends and subscribe at the link right over there. I'm also throwing up a link to my video about how AEW uses story on their shows versus how WWE does it. Give it a click. See you next time on Wrestling with Story.